Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the podcast. So, for those who have just found us, we are doing our US on tour series. So, these are mini episodes, which are solo eps, and I'm bringing you all the updates from my trip. So, I am currently sitting in my hotel room in New York City, and I've just gotten back from a couple of hours of doing some content on the streets. So, let me fill you in. Oh, I should mention these episodes are not edited because I like it to feel as though I'm just chatting to you personally, so we don't have the whole shebang of our beautiful intros and our nice editing throughout the convo. So you'll have to forgive me if I stuff up, but yeah, like that awkward pause that I just did then. Don't you love it? So let's go back to my content day. So, really interesting. I have to say, so I had this idea I'd seen on Instagram. You know, often you come across those pages where someone's gone on the streets with a microphone and asked people questions, right? Sort of cold and gotten their immediate responses. I always wanted to do something like that. And I thought it'd be really cool to capture people's immediate responses around questions to do with parenting. And being from Melbourne in Australia, where a lot of our listeners are Aussie, you would know that I feel as though that raw content on the streets just wouldn't fly, right? So, if you walk up to someone in Australia with a microphone and a video camera behind them and you say, "Excuse me, can I ask you a quick question?" I feel, and maybe I'm being a bit cynical, but generally the general consensus would be, oh, okay, stranger danger. Why are people coming up to me? Why are people talking to me? Why is there a microphone in my face? Why is there a camera in my face? Leave me alone. I'm on a mission. I'm off to my next thing. So, whereas I feel like the Americans are so, it's this culture of like, you walking along and they're always like, "Love your dress," or "Oh, your accent's so cute," or "Yeah, man, where you going?" Or like if you ask them for directions, they're so happy to give them to you. I don't know, they're just a very open culture, right? And stranger danger is a bit less so, I feel, in this country. So I thought, where better to do my first raw content experience, but walking the streets of New York while I'm here. So off I went with my microphone and a friend of mine who was he's a videographer, and we walked the streets of Soho. I'm staying in Soho, and then up towards Washington Square Park, and it was really interesting. So my first observation was that I feel as though with most people on average, I'm walking up to someone with a microphone, in my hand, and I'm sort of leaning towards them saying something like, "Hi, excuse me, I'm from the Parenthood Podcast. Are you a parent?" Firstly, to identify if there's someone that I should be speaking to. Most people didn't flinch. When you like, again, I would be a bit more hesitant being Australian, like, "Oh gosh, what's this person?" Most people are like, "Oh, hey, oh yeah, no, I am a parent," or "I'm not," or it's just like didn't flinch. Like such different cultural, I guess, expectations around people who just approach. And so yeah, it was really good. Look, a lot of people, I would say most of them that I stopped were more than happy to have a chat. I did sort of identify the people who weren't in as much of a rush and who just sort of seemed like they were dawdling, but so generous with their time. And I guess my biggest observation from a lot of, the responses that I got, and I was asking questions like, what would you say one of the best experiences of being a parent has been for you? Like, what do you love the most about being a parent? What would be one of the biggest challenges that you've experienced? And then, how has parenthood changed you as a person? I wanted to keep it super high level just to get people's high level responses and sort of so that eventually when we collate all of this and use it for social media content, also there's synergies within, the way in which they're responding to the questions. So one thing I found really interesting was that the most common response around challenge and growth as an individual, once becoming a parent, was letting our children, learn their lessons and not jumping in and trying to protect them from, what we know will inevitably happen, but letting them learn their lessons and then being on the sidelines and supporting, when they come to us. That was such a common response. And I met people who were walking with their teenage kids. I spoke to older people who had kids in their 20s, 30s. I spoke to younger people who, like, there's a guy with, his kid was probably 5 years old and sucking on an icy pole. And it's just amazing that regardless of the age, that kept coming up. And it really did make me think, like, it is probably one of the things I struggle with the most as well, because, and those listening, you could probably resonate. We want to jump in. We want to fix things for our kids. We want our kids to have the best experiences possible. When they feel pain, we feel pain. I remember there was a situation at school, and one of the teachers sort of said to me, that we're trying to teach little Charlie, my youngest, that you don't have to always, give away your toys in order to make friends. So often what was happening was there was, kids would be like, can I have that paintbrush that you're holding? And Charlie, just being a little bit more of a sensitive, quiet soul, would just hand over the paintbrush or hand over the car that he was playing with. And so they said that we're trying to give him language around, yes, I will give it to you once I'm finished playing with this, or yes, you can have it, but I want to finish my painting first. And, such basic things at the age of 4, but they said, we really want to teach him, to be a bit more assertive. And I remember thinking, oh God, like, again, it's such a minor thing. And particularly as they get into the teenage years, so much is amplified around the independence that they want and the thoughts that they have and the way in which they conduct themselves. But even from such a small example of, like, I had this image of kids snatching toys out of my kid's hand, and I all of a sudden had a bit of like a mama bear complex around, gosh, I hope he's okay. I hope he's standing up for himself. I hope tomorrow he can stand up for himself a bit more. Like, just, again, like we are constantly, our minds are ticking because we just want to make sure that they are having the best experiences possible. And, that's not realistic. And I also know that often as a child, if someone wanted to jump in to help, I remember when I was in high school, and there was a teacher that I felt was a bit short with me, and she gave me my results. It was a science teacher, my results, and they weren't very high for a particular test. And I remember complaining about her to my mum, and my mum sort of said, well, if you think that she's treating you unfairly, then, give me some examples and I'll write a letter and I can give it to the school. And I said, I'll give it to the teacher. So maybe if you don't want to speak to her directly, then I'll write the letter and we can sort of say, look, Leonie feels this way, and perhaps you can be more mindful of that moving forward. So I said, okay, great, let's do the letter then approach, because I was too timid to go up myself. And I remember after we gave that teacher the letter, and maybe it was written, and maybe, I don't know, I can vaguely remember it, but this example stands out to me so much because it was my mum trying to jump in, as we do, to support our children. But that really impacted my relationship with the teacher, because I feel as though the teacher felt as though, oh, well, look, Leonie's getting her mum to talk for her, what's up with that? And I always felt as though she was a little bit more disgruntled towards me from after that approach. And then I felt even more awkward in that class. So I don't know, such a simple example, but often as parents, we want to jump in, we want to support, we want to do all the things, we want to fix it. And, in many instances, we just can't, we want to protect them. I know even from this trip, taking this trip 2 weeks to the States, and particularly my little 4-year-old Charlie, who's very much mummy's boy, everything's mummy, cuddles with mummy and everything. I had a lot of guilt around leaving him, because I thought, my gosh, like, I know they say you've got to teach your kids resilience, but oh gosh, is he going to be okay without me? I took the plunge, and I've gone on the trip regardless, but we are constantly trying to protect and nurture and do what's very best for our children. But sometimes, we also need to bear in mind that balance between doing what's best for ourselves as well, and what's best for them in the long run. From the experience of this trip, he's been fine to date. To be fair, I haven't really asked Jules a lot. Well, I did actually last night. I said, how are the kids going? When we spoke, and he said, oh, yeah, they've been pretty good. I've been sending these videos. I think I mentioned to you in a previous episode. So I do a video a day of, me walking the streets, and these are the buildings, and, mum's having a great time and I hope you're good too, sort of videos. And then sometimes they'll do a video back, but that's been a really nice way to sort of have the separation but to feel as though I'm still connecting with them. I didn't want to have this instance where I get on a FaceTime and then they start getting all upset and crying, and then I feel awful for the rest of the day. So I just didn't feel like it would help anyone. So that approach has been good. But going off in a bit of a tangent here, but I think it was just so interesting today, as I said, so grounding to hear so many commonalities in a lot of the responses that we got. I mean, a typical, another topic that constantly came up was patience, and parents saying, look, I think one of the biggest things that, parenthood has taught me as a person is patience, and how incredibly impatient and how incredibly selfish I was prior to children, because you can be, right? And then you don't have to be overly patient for anyone if you don't want to. But then you've got, a 3-year-old trying to finish their meal and they're having one grain of rice at a time, and you're just staring at them and you're wanting to pull your hair out. But at the same time, you think, I've just got to let this go and I'm just going to sit here and patiently wait, because otherwise if I pull the spoon away from them, they're not going to eat anything. Like, there's just, think about it, so many instances that we have where we're just like, or, in the throes of a tantrum, or, whatever it looks like, that we have to just like dig deep and find that level of patience, because we know that's the best way to react in that time. So many commonalities with a lot of the stories, and I cannot wait to bring those pieces of content to you via Instagram. So please keep an eye out of that. And I think we will leave it there for today. I will continue to keep you posted on my trip. And so look out for our next solo app that's going to hit your ears shortly. I want to thank you guys for listening. For those of you who have just found us, feel free to follow us on Instagram. We're at Parenthood Pod. POD. I'll pop the details in the show notes. And if you could, and you haven't already, if you could give us a rating or review on the app that you're listening to us on, that would be amazing, as the more reviews that we get, the more ratings we get, the higher the ratings, the more we can grow as a podcast as well. Okay, everyone, I'll catch you next time. Bye.